All right, so yeah, drop your top 10, man. We get this thing rolling.
This might be my best list. I'm serious.
Here we go.
Man, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. Daniel.
Daniel.
Daniel. I think it's Daniel.
Daniel. Yes, not Daniel Hunter.
I think it's
Minnesota, right?
I know Daniel. I think that's what it is.
Sure?
It's pronounced a little different. I was listening to the pronunciation.
Okay.
Can we just say wait, Danielle?
That's how I pronounce it. Yeah,
that might be it.
It's Daniel Hunter. It should be from Minnesota.
Danielle Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. You're right. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, he's 10.
I like it.
He's been awesome.
Yes.
All right, Shaq Barrett at 9. Von Miller at 8.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I think we're probably gonna have the same 9 or 10 here. To be honest with you,
I agree. I definitely agree.
Joey Bosa at 8.
Mm-hmm.
No. Von Miller was 8. Joey Bosa at 7.
Okay.
Cam Jordan at 6.
Okay. I like this. Keep going. I like this.
Do we have the same list here?
I like this.
Nick Bosa at 5.
Okay.
Myles Garrett at 4.
Mm-hmm.
This is where it gets interesting. This is where it gets really interesting. Dude.
Let's go.
I'm just going to list off the 3 here, and then we'll get into it. Chandler Jones at 3. Khalil Mack at 2. And TJ Watt at 1. Dude, I think I was wrong whenever we first did our Defensive Player of the Year reactions.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was wrong.
Okay.
And I'm not saying I was completely wrong, but I think my sentiment about TJ Watt not being considered more highly for the Defensive Player of the Year, I remember both of us.
Yeah.
We were like, you know what? All 4 of these players are really good.
Mm-hmm.
Did Chandler Jones get the higher ranking or votes than TJ Watt? Because he finished 3rd. I don't remember which linebacker finished 2nd. I think it was Chandler Jones though. And at that point, I was like, no, it's not that big of a deal. I see Chandler Jones with the 19 sacks. I think they're very comparable. I think we might be a little bit biased with the Steelers thing, but I'm gonna apologize to my fellow Steeler fans here because I think TJ Watt. Whenever you consider too, you know how we break down at this time and place, projection, where they're at in their career, all this type of stuff. So TJ Watt, incredible last season.
Yes.
Defensive Player of the Year, worthy. Check. Strong recent seasons even. His last 3 seasons. Rookie year up until now. Check. Room to improve. Hitting your prime. Check. So that's why I think right now, my preseason, before the season, the 2020 season, TJ Watt is my number 1 edge rusher.
Okay.
And we could go through, and you could do your list and we could go through why or why not, but
I like it.
I apologize to my fellow Steeler fans when I dismissed you back in the winter of it's not that big of a deal. I think Jones is better, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So I'm interested to hear your list, though.
All right. So for me, man, I went back and forth with my 10th slot. I'm actually changing it as we speak right now. Yeah. I initially had DeMarcus Lawrence, but I'm going Shaq Barrett here, man. It's hard.
Oh, you were going to have him off?
I was, man. I just, I don't crown guys after 1 season, man. It's hard for me to do it.
That's really the argument with them, yeah.
Yeah, unless your 1 season was kind of like how Nick Bosa's was, where we saw, this is gonna be a special player.
Right.
With Shaq, that necessarily wasn't the case. So even though the thing is, you get 19 and a half sacks, I just feel like I'm lying to myself. I don't have you in the top 10, especially after that season. It's not like this 2 years removed. We're talking, he just had the 19 and a half. So I feel like I got to have him at 10. So DeMarcus Lawrence ends up not making my list. He ends up being an honorable mention. That hurts because DeMarcus could ball. But Shaq at 10. I got Zadarius Smith at 9 with the Green Bay Packers. Got Nick Bosa at 8.
Oh.
At 7, I go with Cam Jordan. At 6, I go with older brother Bosa, Joey. Then at 5, I had Khalil Mack. At 4, Von Miller. At 3, Myles Garrett. At 2, TJ Watt. And at 1, Chandler Jones.
Wow.
Yeah, baby. So which one you want to talk about first, man? You let me know.
Do you want to do the TJ thing?
Might as well. So I guess so. You already talked about why you like TJ, and you said from a recency standpoint, you said from a ceiling standpoint, you said what else?
Yeah. So I said he had an incredible last season, defensive player of the year worthy. So that's a check. Strong recent seasons. It's not like it was just a one-off season.
Right. So he's been in the league,
and then he's still
3 years.
3 years, and he's still hitting his prime. So if you want to talk about potential and what he could be doing this year, I think that's all there too. Where he could maybe even improve off last season.
Great. So those were the three things. So for me, my counter to that is from a recency standpoint, his last 3 seasons that TJ's been in, the last 3 years that Chandler has had, his numbers have been out of this world. 19 sacks last year, 13 the year before that, and then a league leading 17 sacks the year before that. Throughout his 8 years, he's only had 2 seasons where he's had single digit sacks. Every other year other than that, he's been double digits. His QB hit's been crazy high. The thing is this, man, he forces fumbles. He had a league tying 8 forced fumbles
him
last
and TJ.
year. Yeah.
And I could back you up here. Like he had 17 forced fumbles since 2016, him coming to the Cardinals. I think he's up there, man. I definitely
and this is my thing. He literally just turned 30 this year. So he's still going to have another 3 prime years easily for edge rushers. We talk about edge rushers. They can play for a while, man. And the thing is, his repertoire. You talk like with TJ is extremely smart when he wins. He finds ways to win, but the knock on him is sometimes his athletic ability, right? He's not as athletic as some of these other guys. Chandler,
he's got that.
He's not only smart, but he has the crazy athletic ability. You talk about a guy legit 6'5", 270, and can bend with the best of them. If this guy wants to get a sack right now, it doesn't matter who you put in front of him. It doesn't matter what time of the game it is. He's that type of player. He could rush inside. He could rush outside. The problem is this. He plays with a bum team. If he plays anywhere else, it's a totally different conversation. And that's my thing.
Yeah, that was one of the things we were talking about. I remember back whenever the defensive player of the year thing was coming out. Yeah.
So when we're talking about comparing him versus TJ, I'm like, TJ balled out, was out of this world this past season. Yes, indeed. And his previous 2 seasons, he was really, really good. But I think he still has benefited from playing in Pittsburgh from a notoriety standpoint, from a marketability standpoint. Whereas Chandler being in Arizona, like I said, man, he doesn't get any type of love, any type of respect, man. And the dude, like I said, when it comes to just flat out rushing, the flat out edge rusher, you're gonna be very hard pressed to find a guy who's done what he's done. Since he's been since 2015, he's led the league in sacks in terms of how many sacks he's had. He's already at 96 career sacks right now. He's gonna be over 100 in no time. Like that's just his type of game, man. So that's why I got him at 1, man. I think, man, with TJ in terms of just outside linebacker is the more well-rounded outside linebacker. Because
you brought up the point. You just said pure edge rusher. Correct. Yeah, I don't think I have an argument against that. I think that's one of the reasons why I like TJ in that top spot over Chandler Jones is just that. Because if you just look across, I know Chandler Jones has the 19 sacks, but TJ Watt has the 14 and a half sacks. If you look across the board, I think everything outside of forced fumbles, like hurries, pass deflects, even tackles, QB knockdowns, pressures, even the picks. Like TJ's got him in that. But if you want to talk about just pure edge rush, and I'm just talking about simply last year, because the thing with Chandler Jones that you brought up about his past, whatever it is, 3-4 seasons has been crazy. He's led the league in sacks with 60 sacks since 2016. But I guess that's to my point as to why I would have TJ over Jones. And I like where he's at age-wise and that point in his career where I think he could continually getting better.
Yeah. Well, and this is my thing too, man. I think TJ is going to be able to light up stat sheets a lot more in terms of across the board because of what he's asked to do in Pittsburgh. You're going to be able to see the pass deflections or interception because of what they're asking him to do. You're going to be able to see some forced fumbles, some sacks because of what they're asking him to do. Coaching staff-wise, in Pittsburgh, it's a lot better. It's a reason why the Steelers have the more complete team. Whereas in Arizona, the past, let's see now, 3 years, he's have 3 different coordinators. You got to think, last year was his first time with Cliff Kingsbury. The year before that was his first time with Steve Wilkes. The year before that, I forgot it was a whole new coaching staff out there. So you talk about turnover, you talk about different schemes, 3-4 one year, 4-3 another year. And the one constant is him absolutely balling out with no help around him. With TJ, we talked about, man, he has the perfect setup. The continuity is there. The running mate is there in terms of you having Bud Dupree opposite of you going for double-digit sacks. You got Cam Hayward who's inside going for double-digit sacks. You have a lot more help around you, a lot more pieces. So that's the only reason why for me I was like, man, I feel like Chandler's had to do just as much, or if not better in some cases, with a lot less help, a lot less structure around him? Could my question is this: if TJ's in a different situation, right, where he's dealing with multiple coaches, multiple schemes, does TJ have that same type of ability to go 4-3, 3-4, different coordinators, whether they're good or bad? Can he still have that type of impact? Hopefully we never have to see that, because I don't anticipate, the Steelers coaching staff just falling off a cliff and we having to change it every 2 years. Like that's not the mark of a great franchise.
And I guess the thing that benefits TJ is he's only 3 years in, because we could probably be saying the same thing about Jones and his first 3 years. It's like, all right, if he's not with the Patriots, what's he going to be doing? Right. I had a question for you though, because one of the things that I did, I guess, give the TJ over Chandler Jones, and this is with everything I was reading, is the hurries, the pressures, and like the quarterback knockdowns. Whereas with Jones, a lot of the things I was reading, I was even seeing him not be in people's top 10s in some articles. Some would have him like low in the top 10. Others would have him, in the top 3, kind of like what we do. But they were saying, his hurries, his pressures on the quarterback is lower than everyone else. Like he's really efficient in getting his sacks, but in terms of that type of stuff and causing chaos on a more consistent basis compared to other players, that is kind of a knock on him. Do you see any of that? Like, where does that come from? Because I'm actually curious about that.
So the knock is, because of his teams usually being bad and trailing a lot, they're not throwing the ball nowhere near as much in terms of when he's on defense. When he's on defense, they playing the run, because they're down a score, 2 scores predominantly the whole game. And now at the end of the game, they might try to make it closer, make it exciting. But a lot of Chandler's opportunities, put it like this: if you're playing the Steelers, you're not going to be able to just say we're going to run the ball the whole game because we're going to have a lead on them, right? The game is going to be competitive. Even when it was Mason and Duck at quarterback, it was still competitive. With the Cardinals, it's been times in the past couple of seasons, man, where they just flat out. I mean, bro, when they had Sam Bradford at quarterback a year ago, and then they went to Josh Rosen, like, bro, they were looking absolutely terrible on offense. It looked like a preseason offense. That was an issue. And he still found a way to get 13 sacks out of that. Teams weren't having to throw the ball. They were ahead and was just like, yo, we're just going to run the ball. You cannot stop us. That's the difference in it. So that's when you talk about how he has to be a lot more efficient versus other guys, like you said, with TJ, he's getting a lot more opportunities to rush the pass. Even though they say, well, he's a 3-4 outside lineman, he has to drop in coverage at times. I understand that he does. But teams throw the ball a lot more when they're playing the Steelers, because you can't just sit back and say, hey, we got a comfortable lead, we're going to run this clock out. You don't have that same type of luxury. It was when you're playing the Cardinals, the majority of their games look like that. So that's the biggest reason with that.
Understood, man. Yeah. Dude, like I said, I guess I look back and there's definitely an argument there for TJ over Jones in terms of defensive player of the year, because like I said, all the stats, everything else outside of the sacks are kind of there in TJ's favor. But like you said, if there's certain factors you're weighing a little bit more, a little bit less. I actually had Jones at the 1 spot as soon as I did this list. I made my list. I had Jones 1, and then I did the research after that. I'm like, can I put TJ 1? Can I do it? And then I'm breaking.
You want to do it. Come on, man. Don't say, can you do it?
It was weird, though, because I think at that point back in the winter, whenever the award came out, I was pretty set on like, I'm good with Chandler Jones.
But that was after we had a conversation. Initially, your mindset was TJ.
No, I don't think, dude.
I came in here and showed you the numbers. I showed you Chandler Jones and Shaq Barrett, and that changed everything for you. Prior to me showing you those two, you had no clue. You were like, yo, TJ, look at his numbers. He had the 14 sacks. He's this, he's that, and he's that. And I'm like, bro, do you see these 2 dudes right here? These 2 dudes get better.
I think I was being a jackass.
Oh, man.
I think that's what I remember.
What you do, man.
I think that's what I remember. But yeah, and then you break it down a little bit more. All right, I could see the argument for these guys. I'm not going to get so upset about this because other people were getting a little bit more upset. Yeah. But now, you dig a little bit more, and I'm seeing some more things. So I'm good with TJ 1. I like my first 3 points though, of like, even if you want to take it outside of last season, where he's at in his career and the body of work that he has shown in his first 3 years. I like all that to where I think heading into this season, he's the number 1, but I think some of the guys below him, like Myles Garrett.
You had Chandler at 3, right? Who'd you have at 2?
I had Chandler at 3. I had Khalil Mack at 2.
Khalil Mack at 2. Now, why'd you do that?
All right, so hold on. Can I say some of the guys like Myles Garrett, Nick Bosa, maybe even maybe even Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa. Maybe those guys have a little bit more potential than TJ to keep or go to that number 1 spot by the end of the year. But I think right now, heading into this year, TJ Watt at number 1. If he could keep it up, he'll stay at number 1. But you see the talent with some of those guys that I just named, where it's like they could start taking over, for sure. And I'm not going to be opposed to putting them up there if they do go off this year. But right now, I think it makes sense for TJ Watt. I really do.
Hey, all right. Khalil, trust me, I ain't gonna never have an issue with TJ being rated number 1, baby. That's my dog.
Khalil, what if it was his rookie year?
What you mean?
What if I would have just thrown out TJ Watt number 1 his rookie year?
Shoot, his rookie, I was playing, so I would have said the same thing. What we talking about? He was in the locker room with me. I'd have been like, yo, TJ for president, let's go.
All love.
Yeah, I ain't tripping, man. Yeah.
Dude, Khalil Mack. Here's the thing.
I had Khalil at 5, man. I had Von rated higher than Khalil.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. Actually, the main reason I think the argument for both of them having a so-called down year is for Vaughn. Everything I was researching is that they were asking him to do a ton of stuff with the Broncos.
And it's his first year under Vic Fangio.
Snap counts
changed a ton.
Snap counts were up. He was doing more in the running game. He was typically more for I'm just rushing the passer, and not, like he was asked to do a lot more this year. And I don't know. I guess that's the argument for him not having as good of a year, right? But I don't think that's really a knock on him.
No, it was multiple things. So with Vaughn, Vic Fangio's defense is a little bit different in terms of what they were asking him to do. They wanted him to do some of the things like Khalil Mack does, but we know Khalil and Vaughn, even though they're elite players, they're very different in terms of Vaughn is more of your finesse, speed, lightning out of bottle, whereas Khalil was more of your power guy. You know what I mean? Like in terms of what he does from a run standpoint, rushing standpoint. So that was an adjustment for Vaughn. Then also Bradley Chubb getting injured towards AC, I think was the second or third game of the season. That changed everything for him as well, because then he didn't have a running mate. Now Khalil had a similar situation with Leonard Floyd not producing to the same way, which is why they signed Robert Quinn to play opposite of Khalil. That helped him out a ton. But the biggest thing for me, why I have Vaughn rated higher than Khalil, Vaughn, even in a down year, and this was probably his worst season to date.
Yeah.
They
both had like eight and a half sacks. Yeah.
But the thing was, Vaughn still was more active in terms of getting to the quarterback, in terms of QB hits, in terms of having an impact on the game. Whereas Khalil, all his numbers were down in terms of sacks and QB hits, so he wasn't winning to that same level. And I think that was my bigger knock on Khalil versus Vaughn. And I'm a little more biased to Vaughn. I think his game has aged beautifully in terms of how he's been able to do it for so long and still have that type of speed, that type of fear, where he still is going to command a ton of attention, slide protection, everything like that. That was my biggest thing with Vaughn, why I still had him rated higher, because I said, man, he had a lot more variables going on for him. He still was finding ways to still have an impact on the game.
I think with Mack, for me, I could be wrong. I just discovered advanced statistics this weekend. I'm serious, dude. Like these hurries, these pressures, these knockdowns. Like this is some incredible stats. I could be wrong, but like the 30 hurries for Khalil Mack, even though he had the 8.5 sacks, I think that's pretty good. No,
it is. Yeah. But look at hurries. Look at QB hits. Those are the things I look at. So he had the 30 hurries. His QB hits were, I think,
who? Von Miller?
No, Khalil Mack.
He might have had lower QB hits.
I think it might have been single digit QB hits. I think that was my thing with him.
My main thing with Vaughn versus Khalil, I think, as to why even I have Vaughn lower than some of those dudes in the mid range, like 4 to 6 or 7, is just age. That's actually really it. Where I think some of those dudes, like the Bosas, Cam Jordan just had such a good year last year. That's why I kind of have him in that middle. I don't know how much he's going to really improve off of that, but he's been so consistent over the past 5-6 years, and then really had his best year last season. That's kind of why I got him there. But like Myles Garrett and the Bosas, that's why I have them over Vaughn. And even Khalil Mack, with his age, still being in that kind of that prime where Von Miller, I'm not saying he's completely out of his prime, but he's
just turned 31.
He's not on the best side of 30, or not best side of 30, best side of his career. We'll say that. He just
turned 31. He coming off of let's see, he had 20 QB hits last year. That's what he ended up having.
I expect him to have a fine season.
And then with Khalil Mack, Khalil's just turned 29, and he had 14 QB hits, 8.5 sacks.
What'd you say with Vaughn on the QB hits?
Vaughn had 20.
20.
But the thing is, I'm like, man, they're still fairly young in terms of edge. It's not like we're talking running backs. For the edge rushers, they play till they're 34, 35. We've seen that. And they still play at a high level. So that's my biggest thing with them. I think people put too much weight on that whole 30 number and treat that across the board when it's not the same. I feel like with quarterbacks, oh man, 30 doesn't matter. If you're close to 40, that's different. And then everybody else is 30. It's like, nah, running back, you can make that conversation. Edge rushers, them dudes are playing to their 34, 35 and still being dominant. So I don't think age really factors into this thing right now, because if that's the case, Nick Bosa and Joey Bosa would be a lot higher on my list.
Yeah, I think these guys are, I don't know, they're like hitting their prime, dude. Like, I know Bosa was only 1 year in, but we both agree like he's gonna go.
No, he's gonna be really good. Yeah,
and I think with any of these dudes, it's gonna be personal preference. I think. Did we have outside of Smith? Who you have Smith? I have Hunter. Is that the only difference that we have?
Yeah.
We have all these dudes in here. I think they're all great. I just wanted to throw in here with Mack and the hurries. I think I wanted to get this stat at least with the hurries with Mack. He had 30. Von Miller had 18. And the hurry. See, I don't know. Do you like this stat that much? Because it's saying the hurries.
No, they
QB
all
threw the ball earlier than intended.
Yeah,
or chased out of the pocket.
A hurry just mean you're either, like I said, you're making him speed up and have to throw the ball. You're making him have to move his feet, stuff like that. QB hits when you actually get the hit on the quarterback. Then obviously you got your sacks. So I feel like they all tell the picture. I like finding out the hits, the QB hits and the QB hurries, more so sometimes than just the sacks. Excuse me, because if you have you have a guy that has a low amount of sacks, like say he has 8 sacks, and and he had 30 hurries or 30 QB hits, it's like, okay, he was still winning. He was still impacting the game, right? But if you got a guy who has 8 sacks but only 12 QB hits, you're like, man, you really weren't winning like that to that type of level. So that's why I think it all kind of goes in there together. No different than interceptions versus PBUs versus you looking at how many times they were targeted and things along that nature. A guy could have 3 picks in a game, but if one of the pick was the Hail Mary heave before halftime and another pick was the last heave of the game on a Hail Mary losing effort, that stat's gonna lie to you. He could have got cooked all game and just in the right place, right time at the end. That's not the same as a guy who was locked down, had 2 PBUs and no picks. So that's why I feel like you got to look into all of those factors when you're weighing these guys.
Anyone else in particular you wanted to talk about? I think, like I was saying, I think the Bosas, they're going to be going off here. They've already proven to be awesome pass rushers. Myles Garrett, same thing. Cam Jordan, I mean, Shaq Barrett, we both have him lower on our list because he just had the 1 season. And I think you could like interchange. I know I got Hunter in there, but you could probably interchange like 5 or 6 dudes at that 10 spot. Like
absolutely, man.
Like you were saying, whenever you're like, man, I'm switching someone right on the spot.
I was sitting here like, man, I was torn. I'm just like, I feel like I physically can't have a guy that had 19 and a half sacks last year. It's not like I said, not 2 years ago, not 3 years ago. It was last year. I can't not put him on that list. Like I just
no, and I don't think it was like completely fluky either, because
he looked good.
If you look at the forced fumbles and some of those other stats, they were not as good, but they were definitely comparable to TJ and Chandler Jones. That's why he was kind of in the Final Four for that Defensive Player of the Year spot. So yeah, I have him on the list for the same reason, but it's like, hey, prove it again. That's all. Yeah. Just keep doing it.
I like it, man.
I was thinking of late bloomers too. Like, would you put? I mean, James Harrison was kind of a late bloomer. Maybe could Shaq Barrett have like a crazy 4 or 5 year run?
For me, I don't think Shaq is quote unquote a late bloomer. I just don't think he had the opportunities the same in Denver. So because
he was a backup.
He was backing up Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware. Then he was backing up Von Miller and Shane Ray. Then it was Von Miller and Bradley Chubb. So through all his time in Denver, even though he would get in it, I mean, he had times where he had 4 sacks, 5 sacks. He just wasn't getting a lot of those opportunities. Whereas this was the first year where he really got the opportunities to produce. I think from an edge rushing standpoint, he's always been able to rush the passer. I want to see more, though, in terms of being just a more complete player. Because it was times where last year, like with Tampa, they would use him almost exclusively in pass situations. But then you see sometimes with the running game, I think they were using, what's the kid? Carl, was it Nassib? Used to play with the Browns. They would use him a little bit more in some of those situations and stuff like that. So I just want to see him grow and be a more complete guy. But I mean, that was a crazy first year for him, like first full starter year. That was a crazy type of situation.
You got anything else on the? Like, is there any one player in particular you're thinking about?
No, I was good on that, man, because I knew the majority of our list was going to be very similar.
Yeah, I realized that.
Spot or 2 off.
I realized that as I was going through these lists. I'm like, geez, oh man, we're gonna have 9 guys, because like even at that 10 spot, I was thinking J.J. Watt. I was thinking Frank Clark.
Yeah, because Frank is
Lawrence
another guy.
is in there.
Yeah.
I have Smith in my list here too. So there was like 5 or 6 guys. I'm like, I think Hunter though. I don't know his last
Hunter's
couple
nice,
years.
Bro. Hunter's nice. Yeah,
he looks incredible, man.
He's nice, man.
So yeah, that's. What does he have? Back-to-back 14 sack seasons. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of why I got him in there. It's just.
And see, for me, that's why I had DeMarcus Lawrence initially, because DeMarcus Lawrence, I mean, last year was a very bad year for him. But prior to that, like he had been a consistent double-digit sack guy, and that's why I was leaning towards him. But yeah, I just kept thinking, I was like 19.5, bro. 19.5 sacks, he has to be on the list. So that's what it is, man. Yeah, I like it though, bro.
That was a good list.